Hello, everybody. Good morning. Not so good morning for us as Wazalendo fans, and of course, uh, for any fans that is at home watching us wherever you are. Good morning. I hope you gentlemen, wherever you are, it's not as cold. I can see you're struggling a bit with the cold. How are you doing, Asharan and Kagochi?
Cold morning and
Mhm,
disappointment, I guess.
mhm.
Yeah, huku kumeanza kusnow. So I was making fun that this is not good for a black man.
Mhm.
But yeah, a bit disappointed with the games. But again, that's sport, you know.
Yeah. Huko huwa mnawasha jiko ama
Huku
mnatege
huku nyumba iko na
unapatikana huko nje kwa balcony ukipepeta.
bana, hapa kuna my heaters kwa nyumba bwana.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah.
It's raining where I am right now, but it's not as cold as where you are, gentlemen. Disappointing result. We've just seen Tairat beat Wazalendo 4-2, but at least Wazalendo in the fourth quarter showed that they can actually attack and score some goals. Let's start with you, Kagochi.
Um, Yeah, it was a positive play. I think remember what I said. There's some certain attributes. If you haven't worked in training, it's not automatic that you can try and affect them in a game. But I think it's good. I don't think as coaches we say we never win or lose as much. We also keep learning if you have a growth mindset, and I think it's good for the boys, especially the young players who, for some of them, was an international tournament for them, the first one. But now again is now what we have to look at it now analytically. What do we learn or what do we change? What is it? And again, for me, it's a bigger picture. What does it say about Kenyan hockey? I mean, what do we need to improve? But I'm really happy that they stuck to their tactics, and I think that's one thing we have to learn. They stuck to their tactics, which means they believed in them. It's only maybe the other teams maybe had more exposure
Yep.
from their leagues, and yeah, we pick it up from there.
Asharan.
Agree with that 100%. I think they were more confident.
Yeah,
That's to start off with. When I know it's as much as Tairat were debutants in the tournament, but as a nation, they are more kind of, I would say, settled. They know what they're doing, they know what they want. So for them, it wasn't too difficult for them to actually play in the tournament, to play well in the tournament, considering that they actually beat their own teammates. I think was it 4-0. That
Yeah.
says a lot about as a club, as a country.
Yeah, I think to me, I was expecting a sort of a different match. I thought that Wazalendo will come out strong in this game and actually give Tairat a run for their money. Unfortunately, we only saw that in the fourth quarter. In the first half, they had a timid display. The players were not quite up to the task in the first half, as we said in the other games. So I was expecting, since now if they won this game, they would have a chance going up to third, as we've seen in the fixtures that the third place goes to a playoff. I was expecting them to do much better in the first half, but good to see them in the second half actually matching Tairat toe to toe and make forcing them to make mistakes. You know that the Wazalendo's first goal was a penalty stroke, forcing a mistake of the defender and the goalkeeper. And I expected to see more of that in the first half. But now looking at that match, um, I think there are a lot of learning points for the young boys, especially when it comes to that transition. What I think they struggled a bit with is the transition from defense to attack, because you find that, as we said in the previous match, there was a big gap in between the attack and the defense. The midfield was actually not there. Yeah, they stick to their tactics, but what I was a bit disappointed with is that whenever, let's say, Barry or Bender or Rio got the ball, you see that people are actually standing. The teammates are standing, waiting for something to happen. When Su got the ball, it's like they're standing, waiting. Okay, what will happen next? You find that a player has the ball, they don't know where to pass, whether to move. If they move, they don't have options. You saw Griffin was actually getting the ball in good areas, but he did not have runners in the flanks to give him options. I think that's why they struggled, especially in the first half. Yes, Moses.
Yeah, I think again, Simon, this is something that we've been trying to address as a country. Our off the ball play is wanting, and maybe could be we rely so much on our skill. But again, this is something that I think even when we were working with you in Kenyatta University, I was telling you the biggest problem we have as a country is non-ball play. Our players are not used to make leading runs. Our players have not understood the principle of creating space for your teammates, which means there's a certain way you can run to leave an opening somewhere else, which means our players can play that. So I think it's really evident that we sometimes are relying on their individual brilliance, but again forgetting that we should try to make for them space. And I think there's something I had mentioned before, that this is a habitual problem for most Kenyan teams, or let's say Kenyan hockey. And it's something that you should address, because now you see the other teams off the ball, they were trying to create spaces, and I think that's why you find it was so easy for them to play balls through the center, which is not in coaching terms, which is not allowed. Why? Because they were creating spaces for them to play. So I think Barry did all he could do. And again, this is what I was talking about the other time, is that do we believe in connections? Do our players understand if maybe Bender has the ball in the center, he's making a certain move, what should the other people lead to, or what should they do? So I think this is, for me, I'm seeing it, that it can be a game changer for us to realize and to look at ourselves, what has been the major undoing of our players. And one of them, Simon, is off-ball play. If you look at locally, very few teams make leading runs, and so we play this. And as Hashran said, all Egyptian teams understand that we need to create space, and that's why you find either it's Zamalek, whether it's Eastern or Tairat, it seems that they see a lot of options. Why? Because they really believe with non-ball play. I mean, non-possession play. So I think that's what I think that was one of the major undoing, because if you look at how many times we got into their 25 and 23, just like the other games, we had many opportunities, but the final play is decisive, and it depends on how our players create the leading runs.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, Saimo, people say again it's too much textbook, but we need to understand that you have to create spaces so that your players can also play. So I think that's, for me, that's what I was looking at, and I was actually counting how many times we had leading runs. Apparently, Barry was doing that. Okay, he was creating space, but now do the other players identify that space is available, and what do we do from there? So
actually, so sorry to cut you short. Actually, if you look at both goals, both Wazalendo goals, they came as a result of leading runs.
Yes.
And actually, Barry would have scored the first goal before the penalty stroke. He would have scored the first goal, because I think it was Sutcliffe who made the run on the arc, on the baseline, injected the ball, and Barry missed it. So you look at those runs. You look at both goals. I wish you could review them here. You saw that they were leading runs.
Yes.
And as you keep saying, you could see the triangles inside the circle, and it actually gave cover for either when the ball was spilled or there was an attack. Yeah.
So again, for me, it's not an opportunity to get annoyed. I think it's an opportunity for us to be happy that they were brave enough to try, number one, believe in their tactics. Secondly, and try to sort those issues in the field. So I think for me, still, as we continue talking, I know Hasharan has some few other elements, but for me,
leo amechukua notes.
amechukua notes.
Leo amekuwa Mourinho, amekuwa hapo kando na ka notebook.
No, but I think without even bashing the boys, I think whether I like it or not, they are a mirror of Kenyan hockey. It's even if Butali were there and the other teams will definitely see certain attributes which are repetitive, which means this is us. This is our hockey. Just like what you see the Ghanaian hockey. Ghanaian hockey is about hard passes, physical play, carry the ball if you can, hit the ball into the 45. That's the identity. Now I think our identity of Kenyan hockey, it makes other team easier to play us because they know if you just mark them and be a bit hard on them, they will not cause a lot of problem because we don't lead, and it's a habit. It's a habitual problem that we've been having for some time, and we need to look at how to address it. So for me, I'm seeing it as a problem and solution, and also as a reflective to all the hockey playing people in Kenya, because it shows this is what is ailing our sport in Kenya. But there's so much positivity that we can get a lot into the circle. We have very creative players. We have speedy forwards, So now what we need to realign. And I think that for me, this is a very important show today after that game, because it puts us in a place where we can reflect not only as Wazalendo, as Kenyatta University, as Karate, the whole country, and see what we need to change so that we become more competitive outside there.
Yeah, Hasharan.
Bring it back to the same point. You have players who are dribbling a lot, which can be a good thing. But when you're dribbling with the ball, you need to know where to dribble and when to dribble. As you said, I have been taking notes, and the reason why I've been doing that is just to kind of be more specific about where those situations went wrong. Was it in the second half? If you go back, I'm sure you'll be able to see in the replays of the game. About 6 minutes into the second half, the player who's in the midfield, you're actually at the pivot of the whole game. A midfield player is dribbling, he's beaten one player, he looks up, and what he sees is literally Egyptian players surrounding him. There's no outlet. As in, that is quite disturbing, because when you look up and you see nowhere to pass, and then you end up hitting blind passes where, because you've looked up, you've seen nothing, the players are still coming at you, you start dribbling again, try to beat another player. And then what follows after that is blind passes. And it's not just in the second half, but basically throughout the game, there are quite a few blind passes. Because most of the time is you're looking down, you want to dribble, and you just pass the ball aimlessly. And there's a lot of possession lost in the game that way.
I think Moses mentioned about turnover in their first game.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, as you've said, in terms of dribbling, I also do feel that the player on the ball was taking an extra touch, and resulting in any Tairat defender or midfielder closing in quickly, which, because of pressure, you have to release the ball.
Exactly. They had a 90% press. As in a team that gives you 90% press, that literally means they're inside your 23. So what do you do with that? I think I'm not sure if I did it on the live video or I did it off camera, but I was explaining to you, Kagochi, about having the three strikers in one line. So when you're throwing aerials, you have the three strikers standing right in the middle. But when you're about to throw that aerial, you don't throw it into that space, you throw it out into the open spaces. So those three strikers, your three forwards, they know where to position themselves. So they make leading runs outwards. That is quite confusing for defenders, because what the defenders do is they find three forwards standing in one line. They don't know how to mark that. So what happens is the defenders come all towards the center of the D. They leave the wings all empty.
Mhm.
You have enough space. One advantage of that is you have enough time and space to run for the ball, get it under control. Secondly, the big problem with aerials is that every time you throw an aerial, if a defender is next to you like this, it will always be blown against you. It will always be the defender's ball. But if you throw it out to space, it won't be blown against you, and you know where you're running to. But then again, that comes down to communication of the team. Something I noticed.
Just just on that point, as you continue, um, do you think that Wazalendo used their strengths in this game? Because we do know their strength is high pressing. We know Wazalendo is a high pressing game,
Yeah,
a fast attack, and they are quite physical. Do you feel that they use their strengths in
this
this game?
they started off quite well. I would actually say I had high hopes when the game started. When the game initially started, they pressed and they pressed well. I think the first attack came from Wazalendo.
Mhm.
They played well. It's just unfortunate that intensity started off for the first, I think, 5 minutes and then it just dropped down. The
Mhm.
press was not, I think they put about 60-70% press. They should have gone higher. They should have believed in themselves more. Because when
Mhm.
they were putting a higher press, the Egyptians were worried. But look at the difference, and this is the biggest difference in this game. Look at the 16s. When Wazalendo was taking 16s, look at how much they panicked. Look at how much time they had to look for their players and pass the ball. Look at how much time the Egyptians had. The Egyptians would actually literally, there are times when you have the left or right backs for the Egyptian
Mhm.
teams, they were literally walking with the ball. That just shows that Wazalendo wasn't pressing enough. You don't get to give defenders time to walk around with the ball.
Mhm.
If he's running, that actually says a lot. But if a player is literally walking around with the ball, that shows you the press wasn't high enough. That
Mhm.
is something that needs to be looked into, and something that might be out of context, as in terms of the game. In the second quarter, I think one of the Wazalendo players got injured in the
Yeah,
opposition. In the
it was Griffin, I think. It
No,
was
that was in
Griffin.
the opposition D. Griffin
Oh,
got
oh,
injured in the middle of the
in the
park.
only. Who got injured? Can't really remember who it
Yeah,
was.
yeah, but the difference was, look at what the Egyptian teams did. They regrouped. You have a group of
Yeah,
Egyptian players
it
standing in a
was it
circle.
was it was Sutcliffe actually.
Yeah, so you have the
Mm,
Egyptian players coming together collectively as a team, discussing what they're doing wrong and why the ball has reached into their D. As a team, that's what I'm saying. There's the off-field tactics and there's the on-field tactics. On-field, the captains should be bringing the group together, telling them, do you know what? These are the things that are going wrong for us. We need to do that. So there should be leadership on and off the pitch. Off the pitch, that's the coach's job. On the pitch, as you said, they're senior players in Wazalendo. They need to take charge. They need to say, you know what? I need to bring this team together. I'm going to tell them this is going wrong. We need to correct that. So I know it's not something major. It's not something big, but just that you need that voice to kind of bring the whole team together. You need someone to gel that team together.
mm,
And the senior players are supposed to do that. They should tell the younger players, you know what, come together, let's have a discussion. Those small things can make a big impact. I don't know if
yeah.
Kogochi will agree with that, but all I'm saying is, if you look at even international teams, anywhere, anytime there's a break, you'll find international teams coming together, even if it's not the whole team, maybe 3 or 4 players coming together and talking about, um, this is what's going on here, and this is what we're supposed to do. We do that. The team I play for, we do that. We start off with you have the defenders, midfielders, attackers. So with the attackers, the most senior player, he's going to take charge. Anything that goes wrong, he'll bring the attackers together and tell them, you know what, we need A, B, C, D. Then I'll go communicate to the midfielder I'm working with. If I'm working on the left, so I have a left half who's behind me. I need to communicate with him and tell him, you know what, I need you to do A, B, C, D because this is what is missing.
Mm,
So
mm,
that kind of communication needs to be, even if it's not in big groups, but people need to communicate with each other. And
mm.
that's how leaders, it's kind of a way to move forward.
Yeah, yeah. Before Kagochi reacts to that, I think I had a point of communication as well. The, the communication was there, but it was partial. I remember there is a time in the second quarter, I saw 3 players going for one ball, and all the Tairat player needed to do was a 3D, and he eliminated all 3 players at a go. So it's part of communication is as players you decide who's going for the tackle, who's going for the channeling, and you pick the ball. The other aspect of communication is, as you said, normally when a coach sets up the team, they usually have somewhat of a leader in a particular area of the pitch, as you said. In midfield, for example, you need someone who can organize the midfield, who can marshal the midfielders and actually give instructions on the go. For example, push forward. I need my winger to be on my side. I need to have my attacking midfielder in front of me, basically to kujaribu kuorganize that defense so that that midfield, so that they can be able to hold the ball forward. Also, at the same time, the defense, when you see that the opponents are having a 90% press or a full press, then as a defender or the goalkeeper, you need to communicate and actually now start looking at the spaces where you can exploit and do a counter, because you look at the goals Wazalendo scored, they're out of counter attacks. So in terms of communication, I saw a bit of communication amongst the players, but it was partial. In a game, I believe that we always need to keep communicating, need to keep giving each other instructions, because even us as players, when you used to play, we used to switch off at certain times of the game, and your teammate used to alert you at the same time you alert your teammate. So, Kagochi, do you feel that probably this is an aspect that they should look to work for, or it's something that it's an important part of the game, because we do know that communication is an important part of, especially during the field of play.
Simon, when we started, I said there's some habits that we have, and as the sport is going, as the sport is right now, we have to continually keep analyzing ourselves in the field, not the coach. Because, for example, you find that you are the guys who are in the action, so you're able to analyze. And I think this is something that we need to get our players to get used to, Simon. Why? Because the mindset right now is that the captain is one, or the leader of the pack is one who will call. But now you find out that everybody should understand what they're supposed to do in different times and different scenarios. And what Asharan has said, it's a sign that people, they are analyzing themselves, that when there's a small break of play or some injury, you see that them coming together and they are trying to analyze the game and say, guys, we need to improve this and this. I think it's something which should be worked on. From me, what I saw, there was it looked like we really didn't have people to communicate what is really happening in the field. And sometimes, Simon, you remember when we started these coaching courses, we say that this should be more player-centered. The players are the ones who make the decisions. Players are the ones who analyze and see, guys, I know we worked on this, but it's not working. What do we need to readjust to make sure it works? You understand? So they identify the scenarios in the field and they communicate the same. So the coach is just there to maybe point the direction. And I think all the 3 games you saw Wazalendo play, anytime there was something happening, there was a bit of communication, and you could see in the field. You could see somebody pointing out, or you could literally see in the game that there's somebody trying to take the lead. But now it should be for everybody. Everybody should be able to analyze the game as they play. But one positive thing I saw, actually, in the last 2 quarters, there was some leadership coming in. I don't know if you could see they were able to maybe take the ball back, try to build something, which I mean, for me, I think they grew in knowledge on that. But looking at the other teams, you find that there's a clear-cut structure. There you can literally see the defenders, midfielders, and forwards. Somehow they have a telepathic understanding, and I think this one comes from training, Simon, and
Yeah,
that
now,
comes from training.
yeah. Yeah. So Joe Bondiro, who's also a member of the club, Wazalendo club, says our boys did well. Of course, we need to continue to put in more work into the team, especially on inculcating belief and confidence in 100% of the players. Best way
Yeah,
of getting this is having more exposure
yeah,
internationally. And we did mention this in our preview. We said that one thing that Wazalendo might lack over the teams they are playing against is that international experience
yeah,
as well as match fitness, because remember that our league
yeah,
hasn't kicked off. I think the best they have had friendlies and the tournament that was held by KHU the other day. Looking at Ghana, I think by the time the tournament was starting, they had what, 2-3 tournaments
yeah,
on that turf.
yeah. No,
Looking,
they had one
sorry.
tournament. They had one
Mhm.
tournament, but they were playing their league
Mm,
grass. And overall, they were
mm.
playing.
Yeah, they were
So,
playing.
so they were playing. They're
Yeah,
playing hours. They're playing.
you look at the Egyptian league, it was still going on.
Yeah.
So is it something that I want Asharan to start with this, and then you Kagochi can react? Do you think the fact that most players don't have international experience, and as well as they do not have that much sharpness, affected their performance overall in this tournament?
Uh, to be extremely critical about it, it is a big issue. To be honest, yes, it is a big issue that you don't get exposed to playing with different teams from outside. But then again, which comes back to the point I had, I think yesterday, about players need to go back and watch international games. They need to watch international clubs, don't not necessarily just international teams, but even the international clubs. There are games available to watch, and this is not just about the players; it's also about the coaches. You need. Kokochi has mentioned the word structure enough times. If you have the right structure in place, it doesn't matter which team you play against. Things change, things happen. One of my favorite games, and I know this kind of comes in between both ways, is I'm an Indian, but I'm also born in Kenya, so I kind of support both countries.
Mhm.
I've been looking at the way India has been playing over the last few years. I've been watching even the Junior World Cup to see how the juniors are being brought up. As in the first match of the FIH Pro League, India had not played against any international team. They had just a few training games, yes, fine. Their first match against Netherlands,
Mhm.
they came in and they beat them. India was unpredictable. No one knew how they played. But as a team, they knew how as in they knew how they played in terms of each player knew how the other player played. That's why you have international teams giving blind passes, but you'll still get your own player getting the ball. You'll pass it to your player without even looking. But the reason behind that, it comes down to structure. Do you really need to play about 15 games internationally? Yes, I would say traveling to a new country, a new turf, because every time I play, we can end up either playing on a sand-based turf, or you can play water-based, or you have the hybrids. Each turf plays differently.
Mhm.
But should that really matter? If your team is well structured, you know your gameplay. Best example would be the Egyptians. They know how they want to play. And this comes up with was it the second goal that they scored?
Mhm.
They started off slowly from the back, increased the speed gradually. They knew what they wanted to do, and they ended up scoring one of the easiest goals. Why? Because they have a structure in place. So, yes, Wazalendo doesn't have international exposure, but if they know how they want to play, if they play to their strengths, if they play to a kind of a structured kind of system where they know that this is our system, these players have these capabilities. So the capabilities don't really affect the system, but the capabilities affect which position the player plays in that system. So if all that was to be put from scratch, as in you've started from day one, you said, you know what, this is what we need to do. And this is not something I would say, what has happened has happened. The tournament, unfortunately, Wazalendo is out. But going back, they need to put a system in place. They need to have a structure, and then they need to find players who fit into that structure. So whether they go to, play against Egypt, they can even go play against South Africa, and they can still win because they know what they want. They know how to do it. One of my main concerns was, as you said, you end up finding 3 players going for one ball. With the Egyptians, the best way to play against them was man marking. But for some reason, it's like Wazalendo was playing zonal. But the problem with that zonal play is that when an Egyptian player comes dribbling, you panic and you have 2 players joining that one defender. So you have 3 defenders against 1 forward. Why do that? You know, I think, was it in the 4th quarter? The Egyptians almost scored a goal. And the reason behind that is the Egyptian player who was on the top of the D was left unmarked. Why? Because there was no man marking. You need man marking against a team like that. But that, again, as I said, comes down to structure, comes down to training. You don't need to go out there and play against other teams to know how they play. You just need to know, okay, this guy's played this way, so today we are going to play man marking. This guy's played this way, we're going to play zonal. But that comes down to the team being taught how to play those kind of tactics.
Yeah. Kagochi, what are your views on this? Because Asharan has mentioned about structure, and you are one of the guys who keeps proposing about structure. And by structure here, we don't mean the management structure of the club. We don't mean the president, the treasurer, and secretary. We just mean the structure of the team in the field of play. We know that an important structure, or the importance of having a structure, is that it affects how you play, how you deliver your games. Because looking at how Wazalendo set up, and I said they have their strengths, but has their setup, especially in this match, or was their setup in this match exploiting their talents as a group of players?
I think you've put it very well. For me, I believe in systems. For me, comes in last. Why? Because you have to evaluate the players you have, their strengths, their capabilities. Then now you work on a system which validates their strengths and able to cover for their weaknesses. And this being said, Wazalendo is not short of players. Okay, one thing I believe is that the could be the major undoing is they didn't have I think if they had more build-up matches with very strong opponents, even in Kenya, it could have meant that they could have believed 100% on their structures and maybe try to find out how to tweak it a little bit. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because, Simon, we can do nothing about international exposure right now. But what do we do without it? But for me, I'm seeing also a lot of positivity, because if you look at the goals they scored, it means that these guys have talked about it. They have talked about what we need to do. We have to be calm. But Simon, you have some players you tell them be calm. So to me, it's a habitual training. For me, we've talked about the muscle memory. So, for example, what you're doing here, maybe I can give an example. What you're doing here is that we are teaching them to be patient with the ball, so that it's not a must that when we have seen a lacking option, we just go on it full-fledged. It means that we have to see. Sorry, I have some problem with the network, but can you hear me?
No worries. Yeah, we can hear you.
It means, so what you're working on is teaching them the efficiency of moving the ball with intensity. So, for example, if I want to play the ball on the left side, so we tell them, guys, we have to move the ball in the right with very high intensity, so that if guys are playing zonal or man-to-man marking, they keep shifting. But ideally, we know in our team that we want to play the ball on the left, but we really have to show that we are playing on the right, meaning what Asharan said. So I'm a firm believer of playing narrow forwards, because it creates spaces for you on the left and the right sides. So basically, these are the things we keep on training day in, day out, day in, day out, day in, day out. And it really, really makes me think, how do we structure our training? Our training game specific. So what I'm saying, game specific, do we plan our training sessions so that we have the entire game in our practice sessions? So what Asharan said is true. I know one thing that I did, and with Coach Kimanzi and the other coaches, we talked about it. And for example, I told them that the Ghanaians, how Ghanaians play, how Egyptians play.
We seem to be losing you there, Kagochi. Hopefully you'll be back.
I'm assuming it comes down to the weather also. The weather's
Yeah,
been
the weather.
there's been a
Yeah.
storm coming, so
Mm-hmm.
looks like it's affecting his internet.
Yeah. Now, before he comes back, and continues with his point, we have a look at the coach. The coach, we can say it's his first major international tournament, that is Ndugu Jogu. Unfortunately, Kimanzi did not travel with the team for one reason or another. But do you think that this is a good experience for him? He's a young upcoming coach.
Any coach, best example would give it with the Junior World Cup. That's a big stage for youngsters. That's a big stage for anyone. And I was listening to the coach from Canada. If I'm not wrong, looks like someone who's gone from either Uganda or Kenya. I'm assuming. And they got thrashed 13-1.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's the Junior World Cup and there's a big difference between the teams, but when you get beaten that badly, it's not about, oh, that was a big thrashing. That was a big learning curve. The Indian team, they have been playing the same structure for years. The Canadian team are still trying to find their identity. So getting beaten that badly, the coach came out and said, you know what? We've learned a lot about ourselves. So for Wazalendo, that's what I'm saying. 4-2 is not a bad score. The first match, they lost 2-1. Second match, they lost just 1-0.
Well,
That's what I'm saying. It's, when it's those little points that you need to pick on, there's nothing major. To be honest, there's nothing major to pick on, because it's not as if they were beaten 13 or 14-0. They weren't beaten 17-0. That's not a major thrashing. It's just the small things that they need to work on. They have everything done correctly. They can actually beat the opposition teams. As in, for the fact that they actually scored in the last quarter, they scored 2 goals. That just shows you they have the capability.
yeah.
Now they just need to find easier ways of doing it. I don't know. The coach will look at it, and he needs to now think about, you know what, I've tried this, I've tried this, I've tried this. This is what happened. The coach tomorrow will go back. He'll sit his job as a coach. I'm not yet coaching. I would actually love to go into coaching. As much as my wife tells me every day, you need to go into coaching, I'm still holding off to that because I still want to play. But if you look at
Kubali
someone like,
kuretire. Kubali kuretire.
hey, I'm 35. I'm still running around like a 25-year-old. I'm playing against a university team today, and I'm sure I'll be running circles around them. So I still believe in my ability. But from a coaching point of view, if you ask someone like Kogochi, he's gone coaching full time. When your team loses, is the best experience you can get. Winning, you can win against a team that's playing badly. Uh, you'd learn nothing from it. Or the other team
Yeah.
makes mistake, you think you've done a good job. But when you get beaten, is the best thing because you go back and you look at it and you said, you know what? We tried ABCD, it didn't work. So let me correct it. So the coach is getting valuable experience.
Yeah.
If the tougher the matches are, the better it is for the coaches. Because then they need to come up with new strategies, new tactics, the new way of playing to move forward. And I'll give it back to Kogochi now then.
Yeah. Yeah. Kagochi, you were talking about uh, you having a conversation with Kimanzi about Ghanaian teams.
Yes, what I was saying is that we off the scene, people don't know that even now we are talking and we'll like guys, and apparently they have trained on these attributes. So sometimes the challenge I have as a coach is sometimes players to believe in the system, Simon. How many times have you worked? A good example, when you worked in KU, how many times will you come up with a structure and say, guys, let's believe in this? I know it may not work in the first, but let's stick to this. Let's believe. How many times do our players follow that? I'm not saying they didn't follow. I'm just giving an example. So sometimes game dynamics change. But again, as I said before, we've discussed about how these teams played. Okay, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, what the Egyptian style of play. We've seen it over and over again, not only in the club, but also in their national team. The way the club plays, that's the way the national team plays. So, and Asharan said something, they have an identity. The way South African teams play, both the club and the national team is the same way. They play with two central midfielders. Same as Ghanaians. If you watch as Ghanaians, they always play with two central blockers. So how do we align our system of play to counter that? And how does it counter that? So you understand? So these are discussions we've had. And for me, I believe our players have to believe in what the coaches say or what they plan. The other thing I'm really, really fan of following, and I've learned it from here, the coaches involve the players in analyzing the games. You understand? So that they own up the whole process. Because for me, Simon, for example, nikisema, guys, we go for aerial balls. Na players haelewi kwa nini hizo aerial balls ziko. The first ball atafanya, ya pili, but that atafanya nini? Atarudi kwa default. But the moment we involve these players in this kind of game analysis, they literally see and actually can do a self-analysis and say, this is what I'm supposed to do. Yeah? And again, from the first day, what did I say, Simon? This is a game of patience. It's a game of who believes in their systems, a game of who settles faster. All the games Wazalendos have played, they are coming in very hard in the second and third quarter. So
Actually,
what do you
third and
attribute
fourth.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, I'm really, and again, this was said, it's a reflection of us as a country. When Kenya plays also, we come in very hard in second and third quarters. And I had the privilege of being in 2015 in South Africa, in Ghana, in Egypt. Every team knows when you're playing Kenyan teams, score them early because they're going to come like a train in second and third quarters. So
Yeah.
already,
Yeah.
already,
We are going to go into that in a moment.
yeah,
But I just want us just to focus on this. Sorry to cut you short, Kagochi, on
yeah,
this
it's okay.
game before we get into the national setup.
Yeah,
Blackman King is saying the only thing Wazalendo needs to avoid is playing the ball across the D. Their pressing is not good also. They have to be fast to get to the ball or to get the ball out of their own 25
yeah,
yards. And I think Asharan mentioned this. The transition
yeah.
from defense to attack
True.
was quite not effective What do they need to improve in that area? And Hasharan can contribute on this.
Uh, if I can take one step back and then kind of come to this point, just what Kagochi said about coaches giving the players time to kind of give their own comments in the game. I'll give you the perfect example of how to teach players how to play. I had a driving instructor here in the UK, and every time he wanted me to do something, he tells me, every time I had a lesson with him, he'll tell me to sit in the car and tell him what I'm doing and why I'm doing. The driving here is actually very strict. The test, you can actually fail for the stupidest reasons. But the thing is, every time I was driving, I was coming to a roundabout. He'll tell me, you know what? You're coming to a roundabout. Tell me what you see. Do you see the signage? Do you see the speed limit? Do you see the signpost? Do you see the car next to you? Is there anything that might be hazardous? Imagine that kind of mentality being used on the pitch. As a player, you have the ball. You look up. You start thinking, now I have the ball. There's the defender in front of me. There's my player. What do I want my player to do? The off the ball player has to also analyze and think, you know what? I'm standing here. I want to receive the ball, but there's a defender next to me. So what do I do? How do I get away from him? You see, it's just something worth thinking about. And coming to the point where, getting the ball out of the D quickly comes back to again Kogochi's point of moving it right and then going left, because you want to play left, but you have to move right. Now, it's you have to believe in yourself as a player. That's what I'm saying. If a player can be given that belief of, I can do it, doesn't matter what age you are. If the players are given that authority to make decisions, become part of the team, because as soon as you wear that uniform, it doesn't matter who the senior players are, who the junior players are. You're wearing the same uniform, you're playing for the same team, you have an equal role. It's 11 players who have equal roles in that team. They have to perform equally for that team to work. So passing out from the D, I'll start passing out maybe to the left, pull all the forwards to the left, pivot it back to the center, push it to the right, get it out.
But actually, they were doing it. If you watch the videos or you watch the game again, Joba was pushing it to the left, but they were unable to take it back to the right because the pressing of Tairat was quite effective.
Yeah, but that's where Kagoche comes with the points of passing it fast, passing it accurate, and it has to be that one of go, come back, go to the other side, and it has to be fast. And then you have that when you play the kind of what are they called? The when you're playing kind of a diamond shape in the middle, you always have that midfielder who's the bottom of the diamond. His job is to find those gaps in between those two forwards, the Egyptian forwards. So if you can't get the ball to switch over to the other wing, you give it to him and he switches it over to the other wing. So you can have three at the back, but that middle defender, he's becoming the fourth defender. Or if you are playing four at the back as a defender, one of the defenders steps forward a bit and plays that role. And if he plays that role, then you have two midfielders who can play that role, and you can easily start with the midfielders and just transfer the ball from one side to the other. It's not about they're not playing it. They need to play it more accurately and with pace. That ball needs to be flying from one side to the other. And again, it just comes down to the training ground. It needs those simple kind of passes just need to be done more effectively. Just pass it from one side to the other. It's a simple drill, but it works.
Kagochi?
Why I'm smiling because I was actually writing those things, Simon. We have to accept it. Our basic skills are still wanting. When I say basics, sisemi na ubaya. Nasema passing the ball with the intensity, with accuracy, and the players being able to receive the ball with intentions of playing fast. Now, the only way you can beat a high press is when your pass intensity is high. And the people who are receiving the ball are in a position to receive the ball with a clear intention of whatever they want to do. Now, if you look at how the Ghanaians are playing, you can't play around with their switching balls, my friend. They are so hard. So it makes it hard for the pressing team to actually even try to make 3 or 4 steps. That's one. Two, um, the challenge that we have, and we have to accept it, is that we need to train this. We need to ape these game scenarios in our training sessions, and that's why, Simon, when you did the course with the FIH, the first thing they told that we have to have a lot of small-sided games which implicate these situations in play. And again, that's why I said initially, without sounding so without being sounding so textbook, we need to really have scenarios where we train these pressure balls, where we have a team maybe playing with 3 defenders but having 4 people pressing, so that we try to recreate that scenario in a game, because it happens. Maybe one defender has gone up and then there's a turnover. Now they have attacked. How do the 3 handle this scenario? Then how do they come out from that scenario? So I think it's exposing some of the things that I think we need to improve in our trainings, especially dealing with teams which play high press, dealing with teams which play zonals, and dealing with teams which are more physical. And again, all of them can only come when the players are involved in the analysis, so that they see themselves and they see the errors they make, and now they get involved with the part of coming up with a solution from that, Simon. We are not used to this kind of coaching. We are used on having the balls, guys, warm up, pass the ball around, short corner, but we don't really put the forwards versus the defenders with the midfielders in a small space, imitating a full press, so that we see already what is their thought lines coming out of that. And now, as a coach, now you're able to say, okay, I think if somebody goes down to the baseline to play a diagonal pass, you'll have more space to see the passing line. You understand? Those, just putting the players in these unique scenarios, because this is what happens in a game. Now, Simon, this is what is done here a lot. This is what is done here a lot. We train, yes, we have a structure where we train the basics, but a lot of attention is paid on the game specifics.
Mm-hmm.
So again, if you look at it, tukiangalia Wazalendo, anytime they stringed very hard passes with intensity, they had a desired outcome. But anytime we went back to the slow kind of passing and not knowing where the ball will go from there, we were cornered, because now the spaces which were available are automatically closed. So again, these are dynamics that I think this games is showing us. Okay, I'm talking as a coach, showing me as a coach, and I think as Asharan said, we need to train these elements over and over and over again. For me, one, Simon, nitarudia tena na nilikuwa nimeandika hapa, passing with intensity, reception under pressure, because when you are being pressed, it's all about how do you receive the ball under pressure. Okay, and then now from there, what you said earlier, do our midfielders and our forward make the leading runs to effect the outlet? Simon, I think I said this last time. I believe how our midfielders make the leading runs and forwards make it easier for our defenders to outlet, because they can see the options. So again, the same things we had talked initially in the first analysis of the first game. We need to run around. We need to create spaces so that the defenders can see the options to pass. Again, I think that with that in mind, it could have been better. Now, if there was another game to be played today and maybe tomorrow, I'm giving you an example. Now, Wazalendo will do a bit much better, because you've seen from the first days they have been improving and improving and improving. Now, this is what Asharan mentioned. Shows that we didn't have a lot of build-up games, because now we are getting confident as the game goes by. So all these factors play, especially when you're playing in such a tournament.
Yeah. Amit seems to be saying that we are ignoring him. You're not ignoring you, Amit. All your answers all your questions have been answered. He's asking Kagochi a lot of questions. I think you two need to sit down and have a drink and address these issues you're having online. I think when Kagochi comes back, you can have a sit down and discuss a couple of things, because most of the things you've asked there, he has just answered. Now, looking at Sharan, now let's come to the general outlook of the tournament. Of course, we've mentioned Wazalendo's exposure, match build-ups towards the tournament, how they've handled the tournament so far. Do you think that these players can take something home and say, actually, we came here, we've experienced this? What do you think they'll take home from this tournament?
One of the things, again, coming back to the same thing of watching matches. Now, for anyone who's ever played any kind of football game, and I'm talking about console games or PC games, whatever games you play, or you watch people playing football at home. When you're playing a game, you have a controller in your hand. You're controlling 11 players. The difference is you're looking at a screen, you can see where the players are, and you can analyze everything.
Mm-hmm.
As a coach, go home, take those videos, show them to the players, and show them where they went wrong. These are the mistakes we made. This is what we need to improve on. It becomes like basically you're sitting in a classroom, and I think Kogochi would be the best experience, because from a coaching point of view, I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure there are times when he has to take the team, sit them down in a room somewhere, a conference room, put up a match on a big screen, and show where the mistakes happen. If you find
Mm-hmm.
certain coaches, international games, they have their laptops next to them, they have their tablets next to them,
Mm-hmm.
and they watch the game as it's being streamed live. It's being recorded on the laptop so they can analyze what happened. And they analyze down to the smallest things. They analyze even the short corners. They look at where the defenders are strong. They look at where the goalkeeper is strong. So the next drag flick that's coming in, they'll tell the drag flicker, don't flick on the left, flick on the right. So the best thing for them right now is obviously media. Media has helped them a lot. You have a game that is recorded, you can actually sit down and watch and see what went wrong. I like to record any game that I've played. If I can't record myself, I prefer taking my wife with me to watch the game. She's sitting on the sidelines and she'll tell me, you know what, this is what you did wrong, this is where it went wrong, this is what I didn't like about what you did. And I come back home, I discuss that, and this is someone who's specifically just sitting there telling me what I've done wrong, because it helps my game. I know where I'm going wrong. So, but as a team, that's the coach will have to sit with the team and tell them, let's watch this match, let's see where it went wrong, because it's important. That whole concept of going and sitting in a classroom or in a conference room was anywhere where you can just sit down and study your game. It's a very important thing. It's not about just picking up a hockey stick, going on the
But let,
pitch.
let, let me ask you this question. Do you think that okay, you as a player, and I think Kagochi can answer this as well before we continue with your point. Do you think that we as coaches prepare our players for criticism? Because we all know that it's also a habit to accept criticism. It's not easy to sit down or actually watch or hear someone else criticizing your game.
It's not about accepting criticism. It's okay. Let me ask you: is this that some of the players I've played with, we have youngsters, 12, 13 year olds, who want to kind of climb up into the top teams. We end up kind of integrating them into some of the teams, play one or two matches with them. We go easy with them, but I don't think there's anyone in Wazalendo who's below age of what, 17, 18.
Mm-hmm.
They're adults. Treat them like adults. They need to be able to take criticism, whether it's positive or negative. You are a grown up. That which comes to the point of where, yes, I think Gojo discussed the same thing about players need to be integrated into how the team is going to be planned. The structure of the team, the players need to be integrated into that. They need to have their input in that. And the only way to do that is through criticism. I stand half time. I'm standing there with the team. People are telling me I did this wrong. Am I supposed to go? You know what? You're not the coach. You're not the captain. Who are you to tell me what I've done wrong? But I'm looking at the player. That's a player I'm playing with. I'm playing on the left. There's a player on the left with me. He comes and tells me, I need you to do A, B, C, D. I'm going to take that as criticism, but I will take it in a positive way because I need to improve. I need to be. A team is like a chain link. One weakness in that chain link and it breaks. It's like imagine a chain connected and you have one missing link or one link that is spoiled. The whole chain breaks. The same thing. A team needs to be connected. A team needs to be that one of, I don't care if you're younger than me or older than me, we are a team. If I find I want to do something, I need my teammate to help me do that because I know it will work. So I tell them, you know what, support me in this way, then I'll support you that way, and then we can do this.
Okay. Kagochi, those two questions. Number one, do we prepare our teams, our players, our coaches for criticism? And number two, what can Wazalendo take home from this tournament?
Hey, Simon. Hey, I think the biggest problems, even us as coaches, we have, forget the players first. We don't have the ability of taking negative criticism positively. Because, for example, if Simon, you're coaching, you can be, hey, Simon, I think whatever you did, we could have done differently. The first thing you should think, this guy cares about my coaching, that he's actually looking at what I'm doing. That's one. So secondly, our players take criticism like an attack. And it's something I've learned working in KU, working also in other teams.
Yes, KU, yes, especially hapo kwa KU.
Yeah, sina ubaya because they see it as an attack, but they're not seeing it from this coach cares so much. It's he has seen something something in me that I can improve. One thing I've seen here in Europe, even if you're coaching the top players, when the first thing they ask, say, coach, what do you think I need? They're the ones who come for the critic, not you telling them. And you see, it's an attitude problem. This is something that we need to help our players understand that criticism makes you better. Simon, kama uko job, boss wako akwambia, hey Simon, hii email, the way you're writing emails is not good. Will you tell him the boss unanionea? You'll think about it. Yeah. And I think the high performance thinking is that you must always be entertaining criticism. I love criticism, as long as it's not personal or it's not. If you tell me Moses unaongea vibaya, and I say okay, I'll think about it. Like now, whatever I'm seeing here, Simon, you know, I really follow the comments. Why? Because maybe this guy is seeing something different from me. I should appreciate it that way. Okay. Now the question is, how do we criticize? I think that sometimes it's not what you say, is how you say it. I think also, so again, this is something we need to change. For me, I am very sure some of these players, I've seen them, and some of them are my friends. I'll call them and I'll say, guy, but this is what I saw. And then the first question I'll ask, what do you think you could have done differently? Do you know what you have done now? You have taken the ball back to him. Si kumwambia umecheza maembe, hapana. Ni kumwambia boss, what do you think you could have done differently?
Unamuuliza kwani ulikuwa unafanya nini? But anyway, Kagochi, what lessons do you think these young gentlemen, the young players and the young coach will take home?
Yep. Ziko nimeziandika. Number one, the importance of team play. Yes, you can have exceptional players, but you build your team play around them, which means you take advantage of their skill, but also help the team to understand that we need to help them play better this way. So, for example, if when you unapenda football, so when you have somebody like Ronaldo, you know he's going to score, but how do you play around him? Okay. 2, managing pressure. We need to learn how to manage the games. And again, this one comes from playing a lot of games. Number one, when we have been scored, it doesn't mean that we need to rush to go and attack. We will have to reconcile, because as you attack, we are more vulnerable. The counter controls. We need to learn how to manage the pressure, because under pressure mtu akipata ball anapiga tu, najua, but you're forgetting unapiga wapi. Kama hakuna aibu kutoa ball on the sideline. You're managing pressure, you know. 3, Simon, working on the small things. For me, this is most important. What are the small things? 3D kwangu ni kubwa. How do we receive the ball? Do I scan before I receive the ball? Why? Because you saw a lot of turnovers were because we are not pre-scanned and scanned. No, those are small things for me. Passing intensity. Do I hit the ball? Do I push? Do I slap the ball? Those are small things. The choice of the passes you make. And third, and this one is very critical, importance of individual responsibility. Hapa one thing nimelearn, wanaambianga mtu Kagochi, when you coach, when you team manager, Simon, when you forward, you are responsible for the decisions you make and you must take responsibility. So what has he done? So everybody takes their positions really seriously. Okay, if you lose the ball, it's your responsibility to recover the ball. Now, can you imagine 11 players with that mentality? And so this is what you are saying, Simon. Bari akipata mpira, watu wanasema, oh, the magician amepata mpira. Now, what's your responsibility to make sure he plays better? Yeah. And then lastly, self-analysis. I think every player should, when they go home, I thank God for these games, because they are in Facebook, you can see them. Go home, look at yourself critically. Did you give your outermost? What do you think you need to improve? Now, that way, you end up being a better player come the next games. So for me, those are the key points. But just to make it clear, Simon, as coaches, we talk. I personally talk to these guys after every game. Why? I mean, I share whatever I've seen from here, and we exchange notes. So it doesn't mean that the coaches are in isolation. No, we talk. Simon, I'll talk to you, even if he's out of this, and I'll say, what do you think they should do better? And I will listen, because this is what I say, Simon. Tamalizia na hii. If you are under an elephant, utasema kubwa, si ndio? If you stand beside an elephant, you'll say this is a big wall. If you go to KICC and look at that elephant, utasema ni panya. All of you are right based on where you're seeing it from. So perception. Perception is so important. So I think for me, I've learned so much from this tournament, not only about the hockey, but the things that we need to train, because the things we ignore in training show up in the game, and those are the little things. Yeah.
Okay. Now, looking at some of the comments, thank you, Coach Tom Olal, for watching. He's saying simple solution is to train like your life depends on it, and to play like you are playing for your life. Too much democracy and opinions that have never been tested. Too much talk, yet nothing to show in the field. The best way to fail is to have too many discussions about nothing and do nothing after the discussion.
Yeah. True.
Yeah, true. Good point there. Yeah, so it's a matter of now acting on it. I think that's what Coach Tom is saying. We will give our opinions here. People at home will give their opinions. Even your own teammates, your fellow coaches will give opinions. But it's now upon you acting on them. I think from this tournament, what Wazalendo, the coaches and the players should take home is the experience. They should not be disheartened by it, because I think, and this is now my appreciation moment for Wazalendo, I think they did very well to prepare for this tournament, because all odds were against them. The funding was difficult to get. They got the funding. They came up with clever, innovative ways of getting funding. Remember that they did not have major sponsorships for this tournament, and they were able actually to get the funds from the small donations, the small sponsorship packages they got, and they were able to go there. So kudos to them, because they showed other clubs what can be achieved, when you put your heart, your mind, your soul into it. Some clubs were not able to attend, probably because of financial reasons, other reasons not known to us. But Wazalendo did make to attend and represent the country. So for them, it's a massive kudos to them, a massive congratulations to them for being able to attend and actually participate in this tournament. Unfortunately, they were unable to get past the group stages or the pool stages. But for us, it's a proud moment for Wazalendo, as former players, former coaches there, and as Kenyans. We are proud of you, Wazalendo. Don't feel discouraged by this analysis or any other analysis that you may watch on any other podcast channel or newspaper you might read. All you just need to do is to carry home those lessons, carry home those experiences, and put them into practice. Coach Dij, congratulations to you. I envy you as your fellow young upcoming coach. You have done a marvelous job taking the team there and actually being able to match up against the top sides that were there. Do not feel discouraged. Do not feel disheartened by it. It's a good thing. Use that pain to your advantage. As players, use that pain to your advantage. Do not sulk. Continue working hard, because what we expect from Wazalendo is to go back there in the next edition and actually prove to the teams there that they can make it. Yes, it was a difficult tournament. Yes, it was a difficult moment for Kenya to watch that, but we are behind you guys. We are behind every other team that wants to participate in that tournament. All we just say is take those lessons home, watch this analysis or any other analysis that has been done by any other media house. Listen to your colleagues, listen to your friends at home, listen to your coaches, listen to your fellow technical bench personnel, and you shall improve. Now, Kagochi, let's move on now to the national structure of hockey. We've mentioned that the way Wazalendo play is a reflection of how Kenyans we play. And before I pull you in, I want to bring in Hasharan, because he's also in England, and he has mentioned the same, that you can actually see a similarity in the way the clubs play across the country compared to, let's say, the Dutch, the Irish, the Americans, the Canadians. So Hasharan, what do you think as a country we need to do to start moving forward? Because if that's how we play as Kenyans, does it mean that our system of play is non-existent? We don't have an identity. What can you say about our Kenyan systems of play and what we need to do moving forward?
Uh, just to start off with, if I can take back to the point of about talking to Wazalendo as a team. I woke up 7 o'clock in the morning today, actually 6:30, to watch a game at 7 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
It's freezing cold here, and that just shows that I actually support the club. So any criticism that's coming towards the club is not because I'm trying to be negative about it. I'm just trying
Mm-hmm.
to help the club move forward. I'm trying to help the club achieve its goals. Now, in terms of structure, if you look, Kagochi will tell you the same thing with the Dutch league. If you go to anyone in Belgium, even they do it. In England, there are only a few clubs, maybe Wimbledon and a few other clubs, who actually pay their club players to play. Now it's a different level of play, but don't forget the fact that Kenya is upcoming. It's still kind of growing, not only from the club levels, but even in terms of international hockey.
Mm-hmm.
So at this moment, I think it's people need to bring the. We had over 60s international England international who plays for the club,
Mm-hmm.
and he had gone to play, and we're just in the clubhouse talking to him, and he there's one thing he told us. He's like, every youngster in this country should be given a hockey stick, because hockey, the way it's played here in the UK as compared to Belgium and Netherlands, where from a very young age, a hockey stick is handed to you and you start training. Here in England, it's a bit different because people tend to go through different sports every season. Like during summer, people play cricket, they don't play what do you call it? They don't play hockey. Hockey is more of a winter sport. So we play during December and then start again in January. With Kenya, people need to bring that passion back for hockey. That's the first thing. People need to be passionate about what they're doing. Now, if you're passionate about what you're doing, it's like, for example, people talk about their careers. People quit their careers to go do other things because those careers are draining them. You're just doing a career for the sake of earning money, and then there's a career which you're doing because you're passionate about it. Now, hockey might not be a career, but for someone whose ambitions are to join the Kenyan national team, think of it as something you're passionate about. It's a career thing, kind of for you. You're going to represent the country. That's a big thing. As in, people cry when they get called for their countries. As in, grown men crying because their name is on the list of players who are going to represent the country. That's a big thing for them. So, any player in any club who wants to represent the country should be having that passion of, you know what, I'm going to prove my worth. I'm going to learn from my mistake. I'll take any criticism that I'm getting, but I want to become the best of the best. That is the mindset. That's the mindset that needs to be created by the coaches. That is a mindset that needs to be created by the KHU. It's something that needs to come all the way from the top to the bottom. There has to be a structure. If necessary, the Kenya Hockey Union can just decide, you know what, we're going to restructure everything just to kind of fit. And then the clubs kind of realized, you know what, the international team plays a certain formation. Let's say they play a 3-4-3 or a 4-3-3. As a club, the senior coaches should go, you know what, I'm going to play a 4-3-3. I'm going to look at teams that play that formation. I'm going to see how to make my team play the best 4-3-3 formation in the world, not just in Kenya. So you implement a structure. As Kogocha said, if you have a structure in place or if you have a plan, stick to it. Don't fall into the opposition's hands and start playing what they're playing. Stick to what you have, play at your own pace. But that comes down to, have we been practicing this enough? Have we done this enough? Do we have a system in place? Do I know what I'm going to do for the rest of the 60 minutes of this game? As a player, you should be able to go, you know what? I'm going to play this game for 60 minutes. I know what my job is. I know what my role is. This is what I have to do for the next 60 minutes. Before the game even starts, mentally, you're already prepared and saying, this is my job. This is what I have to do. But in order for that to happen, there has to be a system in place. And it has to come all the way from the top, coming down to the bottom. What if it doesn't happen in the Kenyan team? It doesn't happen in the clubs. The youngsters are not going to learn anything. So there are two different coaches you're going to look at. One, you're going to look at the coach of Kenya. People who are actually coaching the national team will have a certain system in place. That same system goes down to the coaches in the clubs, and they decide, you know what, I want my players to represent the national team. You have clubs here, England football clubs. Players are fighting to play for the England national team. So you have left backs, right backs, fighting for those positions, and they're saying, we want to be there. You have the best strikers in England, and they say, I want to play for England's national team, but I have to prove my worth. And the coaches kind of train you in that way. So it comes down from the national team. This is our system. This is how the coach wants the team to play. Then it comes down to the club levels, where the club committees sit down and said, you know what? Or it could even be down to the club committees. You could actually decide, fine, maybe the Kenyan national team doesn't have an identity. So why don't the coaches from the clubs come sit down together, have a committee and decide, you know what? We need to kind of identify. It's not about you're giving each other tactics. You can give each other tactics, that's fine. But as long as you have individual players who can make a difference, it makes a big difference just on the pitch. The players are the ones who are going to play. But if the coaches come together and decide, you know what, we're looking at players that we need to send for the Kenyan team, we need to have a structure kind of that's going to work for us. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
these are things that needs to kind of trickle down from right from the top. It trickles down right to the player. The individual player needs to know this is the identity. I'm 100%
Yeah.
sure if you ask 90% of the club players what the identity of Kenyan hockey is, I'm sure they don't know.
Yeah. Speaking of that, as we come to the end of the podcast, Kagochi, you've already mentioned what we need to do as a nation in terms of coaching players, preparing players, and I don't want us to go back into that so that we don't repeat ourselves. The last question I have for you, so that we end this podcast, is why hasn't the coaching committee, the national coaching committee, held conferences for coaches so that they can be able to instill these values or these philosophies or whatever system, as I know you are part of that committee. Why don't you come up with these conferences? Because we've seen other nations do it. I'm sure Ghana do it, and you've mentioned it. I know there in the Netherlands they do it, in England they do it. Why don't we come up with such a framework such that coaches in the country, whether they are coaching clubs, the national teams, or even high schools, universities, can come and actually have a forum where they share ideas, and that's the best avenue for how to look at how we can drive hockey forward?
Yeah, first and foremost, Simon, thank you for that question. As I think we had, there was a date which was designated for that. And I think with all these things about COVID and what do you call it, the tournaments, like now that, we are not even sure if, remember, this tournament was supposed to be in Malawi. So the idea was, before we start playing these tournaments, we align ourselves, number one, with the FIH calendar. Okay. Number two, we make sure that we have a conference detailing all hockey coaches from schools, from primary school, all hockey coaches. Then now we sit down and start analyzing first what made us successful in the past, what is happening right now, how do we change it, and from that we listen to all the coaches. I'm yet to find out from the coaching committee, but I know it's one of the things which is a key agenda before the year ends. That's what we had said. But again, Simon, is very hard to bring all the people together. But one thing I'm very sure.
Kagochi, you can't tell me it's hard to bring people together, because I'm in Kenya, Sharan is in England, you're in Netherlands. We can do this virtually. Actually, the courses we did was virtual, because I'm not saying that you do need to have a whole nation of coaches coming together. You can start in at county level, because what I'm frustrated with how we are running hockey in this country is that we keep saying we are planning, we planned,
There's no
we are planning to we never actually do it.
actually that's what Tom said. For me, the idea was identify first, okay, and then now involve people after we have identified what we need to do, and that one we did it. Simon, as a coach, we did that, but I am also waiting for the exact date. Okay, so when I say that, I'm not saying in a negative side. All I can do is, and this is what I've been saying even this podcast, and some people don't understand. I'm not talking about most. I'm talking about the best practices. What I have seen, the one like now as you're talking, I have been called to get involved with the Dutch one and to see what is happening in this part of what happening to my club. Which players do I think can play for the select time? You see, so it's something to do with administration, and I think that one, on a positive note, we have to address it to the administration, because all the coaches are ready to meet, but we need to it to be structured. Otherwise, it will be like bunge la mtaa,
Because I mean, Kagochi, the way I'm looking at it, and of course now we need to end this show, is the way I'm looking at it, you don't need to have some sort of a formal framework to start with. You can
Yeah.
start by having these seminars,
Mm,
where the experienced coaches come there, sit down
mm,
with the young coaches like us and share their knowledge. You can
yeah.
have, like, I don't know whether you subscribe to this platform called the Coach's Voice. I have subscribed to it.
Mm,
Unfortunately, most of the times Coach's Voice is football coaches,
mm,
but they
mm,
do they do call experienced coaches like Alex Ferguson, Arsene Wenger, just to sit down and share their experience, share their knowledge. For example, the other day I was having a conversation with one of my club members at Park Road, and I was asking them, what happens when Kimanzi leaves the national team? What happens when the likes of the generation of Senge, your generation, Kimanzi leaves? The next
yeah.
coach, Zakaura. After Zakaura, which is the next coach? Do we have a
Mm,
plan for that? So I don't think we actually need a formal framework per se. What we
mm,
can do is just start with seminars. You can do
mm,
county seminars or even online seminars where you have like yourself, who's at the Dutch there. You can even have a foreign coach coming in to just talk and give their knowledge to young coaches. Because the more we wait, other nations are progressing. The other day we used to beat Ghana. Right now we can't match their level. They
mm,
have the same problems nationally as we have. But right now, if you look at the way they've set up their things, we are trying to play catch up. So
mm.
the most frustrating thing, as I get your final thoughts, to gentlemen, the most frustrating is we keep saying we are planning to, we are waiting. How long are we going to wait? Because time is flying. Unfortunately, and I'm not being rude, you guys are getting old. You won't do this for long.
Hebu,
And I'm
umesema
not
mati.
being rude.
Okay.
It's the way of life. What happens to when your generation goes out?
Yeah.
You see,
Yeah.
who will be the next KHU president, for example? Are we grooming the next leader? Are we grooming the next coach? Are we grooming the next team manager? Are we grooming the next tournament manager or something? So I think we there are some things that don't need to be formalized. It's some things that just need a plan, and you start and fix along the way. So anyway, gentlemen, let's start with Hasharan. Your final thoughts as we end the show.
Final thoughts. As I said, you've actually mentioned everything. You've said how people need to stop talking and start doing. I would actually recommend. You said Hockey Kenya is kind of more like a private
Mm,
forum. I would actually take the next step from here as being the administrator of Hockey Kenya. You should be able to call people right now. You've already called Kogochi. You can
mm.
add a few people. Get a date. Set a date right now. Discuss a strategy.
Kagochi anacheka juu anajua my response to that, but I'll respond to that.
No, but no,
Yes.
no. The thing
Yeah,
is,
yeah,
I know there
yeah.
are difficulties. I know there's always going to be difficulties, but
Mm, mm,
you have a platform where people can actually come and discuss these things. As
mm,
you said, you don't need the whole country to come and do it.
mhm,
Get about 5 or 6 coaches who can actually agree to it, agree to a date, give you about an hour. Because if you're going to get about 5, 6 people, you need at least an hour and a half. People who are willing to sit down, give them a list of topics. These are the topics that you're going to discuss. This is what needs to be done to move forward. So what happens is bring about 5, 6 people, talk about it, let it blow out on mainstream media. Let each one of the clubs that have social networks, social media, sorry, social network, social media, whichever it is, let the whole thing just kind of blow out from that.
mm,
So each kind of get members from different clubs, tell them to come and discuss stuff. Then tell them to post those videos on their social media groups. Let it kind of spread like that. It needs to start from somewhere. It's like you need to light the fire for the fire to spread. If you don't light it, there's nothing that's going to happen. So you need to, even if it's bringing about four different coaches from four different clubs, let them come together, let them have a discussion, tell them to go spread it out to their clubs, then start talking to their other managers and tell them, you know what, this clubs have actually participated. I want you guys to join in. And from something that small starts off small, actually starting off small is actually better because you'll have too many opinions coming in all at once. Maximum I would say is about six coaches coming in, giving their opinions, then let it grow from that. Let the other coaches kind of listen to what you have said, analyze that, and then come with maybe one or 2 points and let it be structured and let them just kind of grow from that. But it needs to start from somewhere, and you have the best platform to do that.
Okay, yeah, Kagochi. Before I respond to, Kagochi knows my response, and I feel he's going to say it.
No, no, no. I would say it. I think Ashan, and I'll say this here openly, and it's what I feel and what I've seen. First and foremost, sisi kama coaches hatupendani.
Sasa mbona umepeana response yangu?
Hapana, let me just say it. From me, as a hockey fan, I have really tried to groom coaches. I am mentoring so many coaches, and Simon, you know that.
Yeah.
I believe the only way we are going to progress is when people see things differently. Now, this is a challenge we have. We are not supposed to be competing. We are supposed to be complementing each other. I can never be like Simon. I can never be like Ashanan. My good friend Senge, I can never be like him. Kimanzi, we are all unique, and God has put something in us to make an effect differently. Now, can you imagine if we complement each other? Secondly, Simon, there's so much bitterness. There's so much bitterness. I don't know why. So for me, I believe I am doing my bit. Tom is doing his bit. You are doing your bit. Magongo is doing their bit. You see? But I feel we don't have one desired goal. And I feel if you try to bring something like that, this is what I experienced once, Simon. Hiyo ni ya Kagochi. Kagochi anaongea vitu za mabjuu. Hakuna tunatusaidia. We've tried to do those things like that instead of people to come and listen. And I'm not the one who's speaking. There are other people who are coming in. I was hoping to bring Jules Halls. Ashran, you know, Holcomb Hockey Club, Jules Halls is a friend of mine. He was really, really, I want to bring him over as an ex-Olympian, ex-World Cup player from England, and just have coaches to come in and just listen to this wealth. But now when you do that, Simon, what will people say? When I say, for example, boss, let's meet. Now, so I think the first of all, we have to agree we need to accept people's opinions. They are their opinions. But lastly, Simon, I'm just going to repeat this. We need to know that we are not in competition. We complement each other. For Kenya to succeed, I need the guy in Kisumu. I need the guy in Machakos. We need the guy in Mombasa. We need Hashran in England. Why? Put all ideas together, see what will work, but the motive is just to develop the hockey, not cutting each other into sizes to see who is more doing better. I don't think that will always do anything, Simon. And I think you know, I've been saying it over and over. I'll do my bit. I'll do my bit.
I know you do your bit, but now to respond to Hasharan and a lot of people have always come to me on this is personally with my page Hockey K, I've also faced a lot of fights based on what I'm doing. I'll tell you for a fact that Thursday, I got a very harsh message. I won't say it is. I got a very harsh message on my own inbox saying that we are not building those players by criticizing them. So you look at that, and then at the same time, you look at how the media perform their duties in terms of live match analysis and that. So I asked that individual a question. I asked them, now assuming we are fighting for a league to be aired live, do you think that the pundits there will be nice to the players during the league match? Most of us watch football. How many have actually seen the pundits? For example, Man U fans, you've seen how Roy Keane behaves and how he actually abuses the players. So personally, I've received a lot of fight. Uh, I've also proposed a lot of things to the organization, that is KHU, on how they can have that public-private partnership with companies to propel their agenda. But more often than not, I don't get a response. You look at also, as Kagochi has said, you try to bring in a forum, kuna hiyo, there's some hot sort of hatred amongst ourselves, as Kagochi has said. We don't seem to work together nicely. I don't know why. I don't know where this came from, but it's a culture that has been developed and is being developed. Because you look at the young players coming in. The other day, Kagochi, we were having a discussion with you in one of our podcasts. Sai Sharan, ask any young player about, for example, KHU. They won't give one single positive about them. And if you ask them whether they do have facts about it, they won't. But because when they came into the game, when they came into City Park, they had all these negative things about KHU. They'll continue running with it. So there's a lot of negativity in our sport that actually needs to be addressed, number one. Number two, once you decide to do such a thing, you get knocked back, either by the controlling organization or by the individuals themselves. When you start to have this forum, you start getting the red tape. Where did you get the authority to do this? Did you consult before you started doing this? You need to get us involved. And then once you get them involved, they take a lot of time to respond. Case in point, Kagochi has said they planned, they are planning, they are still waiting. So what I'm advocating for is we need to get to that point where KHU, the county associations, the coaches themselves, the player themselves, we need to get to a point where we actually have an environment that can promote this sport. An environment that can say, okay, fine, Hockey K or Magongo or Hockey Kenya or Kikwetu Hockey, they are doing their own things, but it is not going against the mandate of KHU of promoting the sport. It's actually helping. So you now what I expect KHU to do, or county associations to do, or coaches like Agochi or even you to come and say, this platform is actually trying to build a sport. Where can we support? Instead of knocking them back, we should be asking, what can we do to support? For example, you've given me the challenge to assemble coaches and have this seminar. The question is, once I decide to do this, will the coaching committee of KHU come and say you are not allowed to do this? Or will they come and say you should seek permission, or should they come and say, or will they come and say we'll support in what you are doing? If let's say Magongo decide to do it on their own and they write a letter to KHU, how long will they take to respond and discuss and respond and say that's fine, you can do it, we'll give you a support? So those are the things that are affecting us, and that's the plain truth. There's a lot of bureaucracy, there's a lot of red tape, there's a lot of delay, and there's a lot of knocking back. When guys want to implement new innovations, there's a lot of knocking back, not only from KHU, but also ourselves as individuals, as coaches, as players. So, gentlemen, I don't want us to extend this because this is a discussion that can take up to 4 hours. But thank you,
Simon,
guys.
just let me cut you just shortly. I think Kogoche will be, as you know, there's a thing with Dutch players. Internationally, every time the Dutch team plays, they actually wait after the match to sign autographs for the youngsters. And it's a Dutch tradition. Every time they play a match, whether they win or lose, they'll stand there, they'll wait for the youngsters to come, they'll get their hockey stick signed by the international players. If, as an organization, the whole Kenya hockey organization doesn't work, one of the things you look at is advertisements.
Yeah.
You look at hockey brands. One of the biggest hockey brands right now is Adidas.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you want to buy an Adidas hockey stick? Because you see the big players playing with them. You look at that stick and you say, I want that stick. You look at the Adidas hockey shoes and like, I want to buy those shoes because I see the internationals playing with it. If you can't do it, and this now is pinpointing and saying, as a former Wazalendo player, Wazalendo Hockey Club should be playing hockey at that high level that other clubs look at them and said, you know what? There's something they're doing right. Let's do what they're doing. Be an example for the rest of the league. If the whole association doesn't want to work, be an example for the rest of the league and let them look at you and envy you and say, you know what, I like what they're doing. I want to copy what they're doing. I like their system of play. I want to copy that system of play. If you do that, then forget about any organizations, forget about committees. People will automatically be attracted to something that's working, something that's positive. So if something is nice, shiny, flashy, you look at it and you're like, I want that. If someone someone tells you, you know what, I'll give you a brand new Bugatti or a Ferrari, and then someone tells you, I'll give you a Toyota, you'll be thinking, you know what, I'm going to go for the big cars. I'm going to go for the expensive one.
But Mkikuyu atachukua Toyota ukimpatia Probox.
Yeah, but the thing is, reality is, if we look at reality, the national speed limit here in the UK is 70 miles per hour. You can't go faster than that. You get tickets for that. What's the point of buying a Ferrari that can go 200, 300 miles per hour when you're stuck to a speed limit of 70 miles per hour? You still want that car because it's a status thing that I have a Ferrari. Imagine Wazalendo start playing that kind of hockey. People will be like, you know what? I want to copy that style. I like what they're doing. So if it doesn't work out in terms of the whole organization, start somewhere small. Start with that individual club. Let them play that kind of hockey so that people look at it and say, you know what, I want to copy that.
Yeah, Kagochi, final word. I think sasa hii ni final word.
For me,
1 minute.
hata si 1 minute, nasema 30 seconds. When your motive is right, when our motive is right to develop the sport, to take Kenya to greater heights, not where we used to be, to greater heights, we need to agree that we are all different, just like our hands, our fingers. Every finger is important. The small one, the thumb cannot laugh at the small one because there's a time you need it. We need to look at this, and it's okay to have divergent views. It's okay, but let's make the game bigger. Everybody gives. For me, I don't like people who criticize me in the fence. At least I am trying to do something. Come join me and you criticize me when you're doing it. Not sitting at the couch and saying you guys are not doing right. Mnaongea nini? No. Come, get your hands dirty, and we can talk when the hands are dirty. So for me, Simon, I'll keep doing whatever I'm doing. Keep doing whatever you're doing, Simon. You don't know how many people we are reaching out there. But in the final, once everybody comes together, Simon, guess what? Kenya will be greater. Okay, and I think that's my parting shot.
Yeah, gentlemen, Hasharan, Kagochi, thank you very much for being part of the panel of ACCC 21, and of course being part of this podcast. I'm planning to have more podcasts on my own, not only on Hockey K, to discuss about sports. I'm both a football and a hockey enthusiast, so you'll be seeing more of me. But thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming through. Thank you to our fans, Akida Boka, Tomolal, Eric Mulati saying good conversation, great conversation. Thank you. This is where you learn a lot, by the way. Be watching our podcasts. Thank you to everyone who has watched. Thank you very much to you guys for supporting Wazalendo. Unfortunately, it's the end of the road for this particular tournament. But as I've said, we are proud of them. We are proud of them representing the country, and we are telling them, do not get discouraged. I'm sure if you take lessons from there, mtawin ligi unbeaten. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, have a nice weekend. Sharan, all the best in your game. Make sure you score a hat-trick. Kagochi, I don't know whether you have a game over the weekend, but in case you do, all the best.
Yeah,
Cheers
thank you.
and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.